Slope-intercept form is one of the first forms of a linear equation that we learn. Most of you have actually been writing equations in slope-intercept form before you even realized that's what it was called. We call it slope-intercept form because they give us the slope, which is m, and they give us the y-intercept, which is b. So if I know the slope and the y-intercept, I can write an equation, and then I can graph that equation. Or if I have a graph, I can find the y-intercept, figure out the slope, and then write an equation from that. So we're going to learn how to write equations in slope-intercept form from 4 different representations. So the first one we're going to do is we're going to do a graph. So when we write something in slope-intercept form, again, y equals mx plus b, the easiest thing to find on a graph is the y-intercept. In our case, it's right there. So that is at 0, negative 2. So my b is negative 2. Now, to find my slope, as I showed you in a previous video, I'm going to find my rise over run. I know that this is negative slope because my little guy's walking downhill. So I know my slope is going to be negative. So I'm going to fall 1, and I'm going to run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So my slope is negative 1/5 x. Now that's obviously a little messy, so I'm going to write y equals negative 1/5 x minus 2. Now if you wrote plus negative 2, that's perfectly correct. We just don't generally write it that way in algebra. So here's another example. First thing I do is I identify my y-intercept. So in this case, my line crosses the y-axis. That's my y-intercept right here at 6, 0, 6. So I write 6 down. Okay, now I need to find my slope. Well, I have 2 points here. My little dude here says that I have positive slope. So I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to go over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now I can reduce 4/6. It reduces to 2/3. So my equation is y equals 2/3 x plus 6. So that's the first way we can write an equation in slope-intercept form, is by looking at a graph. The next thing we could do is we could look, this could not be easier. They give us the slope and the y-intercept. So literally, slope is m, y-intercept is b, y equals mx plus b. Well, y equals 5x plus 9. Couldn't be easier. Now this one's a little trickier, but only because they don't actually, normally they won't say y-intercept, they'll say and a point 0, 5. So you need to recognize that if they give you 0 and a number, that is the y-intercept, because the y-intercept is the value of y when x is 0. So again, I have my slope, I have my y-intercept, y equals mx plus b, so y equals negative 2x plus 5. Okay, so that one was pretty easy. The first 2 are pretty easy. The next 2 get a little bit more complicated. So this is when they give me slope and a point. Okay, so they tell me the slope is negative 4, and then they give me a point 3, 13. So I have y equals mx plus b. I know my slope is negative 4, but they didn't tell me what my y-intercept is. So I have negative 4x plus something. So what I'm going to do to find this is I'm going to make a table with a process column. Okay, so I'm going to put my x part of my coordinate in the x column. I'm going to put my y in the y column. And then I'm going to start with my rule, negative 4x plus something. I'm going to use this x value, and I'm going to substitute it into what I know. So negative 4, my x is negative 3, plus something is going to get me 13. Well, negative 4 times negative 3 is positive 12. 12 plus what is 13? 12 plus 1 is 13. So my equation is negative 4x plus 1. Y equals negative 4x plus 1. Okay, let's try it with this one. Okay, I have a slope of 3/2. So in my equation, I have y equals 3/2 x plus, let's see what. I make my little process table. I put the x in the x column, the y in the y column. 3 halves x plus something. Well, 3 halves of 4, 3 times 4 is 12, 12 divided by 2 is 6. 6 plus what equals 6? Well, 6 plus nothing is 6. So it's 3 halves x plus 0, but I don't have to write that 0, so the equation will be y equals 3 halves x. Okay? So that's the second method. So for this one, they give me the slope and a point, so I have to use the slope and the point to find a table. This last one is pretty much all they give me is 2 points, and I got to find everything from that. So the first thing I have to find, because again, the first thing I used in this was the slope, so the first thing I have to find with these 2 points is the slope. There's 2 ways I can do that. I can find that by putting these 2 points in a table, or I can find it by using the slope formula. The slope formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. That's going to give me my slope. I label this one x1, x2, y2, y1, y2. And I have another video on how to use the slope formula. So if you want to look that one up, you can. Okay. y2 is 1. y1 is 3. Oh, I labeled those wrong. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. This should be y1, x1. I apologize for that. I screwed up. It's an easy mistake to make, as you can see. Okay, so 8 is my x2 minus 4. 1 minus negative 3 is negative 2. 8 minus 4 is 4. Negative 1/2 is my slope. Okay, so now that I know my slope, I make my little process table. I'm going to pick either one of my ordered pairs and put them in. So negative 1/2 of 4 is negative 2 plus something is 3. Well, negative 2 plus 5 is 3. Well, now the cool thing is I have another point that I can test this with. So negative 1/2 of 8 is negative 4 plus 5 is 1, and that's the value I wanted to see. So I know my equation is negative 1/2 y equals negative 1/2 x plus 5. Okay? Sorry about mislabeling those. Such an easy mistake to make. Have to be careful. Okay? Now for this one, we're going to do the same thing. This time I'll find the slope using a table. So for this one I use a slope formula. For this one I'm going to use a table just so you can see the difference. Okay, so I have negative 1, 7, 2, 16, 7 plus 9 is 16, negative 1 plus 3 is 2. My delta y over delta x is 9 over 3, which is 3. So my slope is 3. Now I make my process table. I have 3x plus something is y, negative 1, 7. So 3 times negative 1 is negative 3. Negative 3 plus 10 is 7, I think. Let's check. 2 should give me 16. So 3 times 2 is 6. 6 plus 10 is 16. I'm right. So my equation is y equals 3x plus 10.